I'm here with Professor Ray Campbell from Peking University Transactional Law University, and we're here to speak about Professor Ray Campbell course that is the digital future of the oldest information profession. And I would like to ask you, Professor Campbell, how do you see the oldest information profession from now on?
Okay, well, I think in the United States, which is the area where I really know the most, where I practiced and where I was trained and where a lot of my scholarship centers, you're going to see continuations of trends that have been going on for 100 years. I mean, law practice, 150 years ago was individual craftsmen, professionals practicing more or less on their own in a variety. And in the last 100 years, we've seen the growth of very large law firms. We've seen specialization. We've seen the profession lose control in many ways to government, as antitrust is applied to lawyers and stuff like that. We've seen it become more focused on income. It used to be, law was a good profession to make a pretty good living but not become rich. Now it's a pretty good way to become rich if you're in the right practice. So I think we'll see those trends, but we'll also see two, I think, sort of mega trends. On the corporate side, you've got the general counsels who work for the big companies who really are in charge on the corporate side. They hire lawyers, they disaggregate or break up work. They might send some of it to a law firm, some of it to a different law firm, some of it to non-lawyers like e-discovery firms or legal process outsourcers. So you'll see the general counsel continuing to push for new ways to do things and ways to drive down cost, because they're responsible to the business executives to bring down the legal spend overall. Also on that side, I think you'll see more and more compliance, more dollars going to preventing legal problems as opposed to addressing them. You'll see, you already see a lot of concern about the kinds of compliance issues we've seen where companies like Walmart and Deutsche Bank end up with massive exposure, and I think you'll see, the legal and risk, management part of corporations, focused on shifting some of their spend in that direction. On the individual side, the big mega trend in the United States, which I gather is not so bad in Brazil, is access to justice. If you're not a poor person, but just an average person, it's very hard to afford a lawyer. And so people end up either unserved, they have legal questions, but they just don't go to a lawyer to ask that question, or they try to represent themselves, which is not a good recipe for success and is also extremely burdensome if it's a litigation matter on the courts, because you have these people come in who don't know the processes, don't know the terms, don't know the rules of the road. So I think we'll see issues there. Now, technology is going to have an impact on both sides, but I guess we'll get to that.
What would be the role of technology in this scenario?
Okay, we're at an inflection point, at a point of change that may be historic, maybe more than just the normal sort of sustaining innovation where we use technology to do things a little better and a little faster. Richard Susskind, who's a leading sort of legal technologist and prognosticator of technical change in the legal world, has written a book with his son in which he really predicts for all the professions that we've gotten to a stage where technology can manage information better than humans. The traditional concept of professions, which includes law and which includes medicine, but I think law more than most, because we're only about information. We don't touch people's bodies. We don't create products. It's only ideas that come out of lawyers, only information. That the role of the expert has been to be someone who has expert knowledge, has mastered a body of theory and applies that to facts. And handles really information to give people answers and to solve problems. And Suskind's argument is with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and other technical advances, we've gotten to a stage where machines can manage information in many cases better than humans. And he predicts that it's going to displace lawyers altogether. A lot of people are skeptical, and even the ones that aren't skeptical, a lot of them think, well, it may happen, but it's not going to happen, next year. What is going to happen next year is that some of those advances are going to start to play a role. That machine learning and artificial intelligence are already, players in the field. I mean, there's a Watson, which, defeated the world champions in a quiz game called Jeopardy in the United States, now has a legal version called Ross that basically does what a first-year associate does. You ask it a legal question, it comes back with a tentative answer and, sources. And that's the kind of thing that a pretty good first-year associate might do. And, that may not eliminate first-year associates, but it may mean that you need fewer first-year associates, and that the ones you need, need to be better. We also are saying things like form generation. LegalZoom does it directly for consumers. A lot of law firms have form generation where they will plug in the inputs, and the computer, following a rules-based AI system, will output product. Now, this can also happen within a law firm, a big law firm or a little law firm, and again, reducing the amount of time. So I think, coupled with the access to justice problem on the consumer side and the general counsel's, driving for lower cost on the corporate side, we're going to see pressure to adopt a lot of these technologies, to incorporate them in, every aspect of business. Use machine intelligence the way Lex Machina does to predict success in litigation and patent litigation. Other companies do the similar thing in medical malpractice. To help speed up how fast you evaluate cases, to help speed up how fast you create documents, to help speed up how quickly you produce legal research. And so I think, lawyers who practice the way my great-grandfather did are going to be at a disadvantage because they're going to be up against a machine. Now, there are things that I tell my students, it doesn't mean, I don't think immediately lawyers go away, but I think students like the ones who are teaching in this class, it's important that they think about these trends and think about where am I going to be able to add value. So if you're thinking, well, I'm really good at coming in, with a tentative answer and 10 sources, well, maybe that's not as valuable as it was 20 years ago. But there's still skills that are important. People skills, networking skills, judgment. These are all things that matter, and that matter. Any lawyer who's been a partner or practiced for an amount of time realizes that what we learn in law school is useful and it's relevant, but it's not everything. And I think those other things are going to become more and more important. I think the other thing is I think young lawyers need to be comfortable to the extent possible with math and statistics and comfortable with technology, because for them to practice, they are going to be relying and leveraging off of these tools. So there also, I think Susskind predicts this, and I think he's right, there are going to be a number of new fields that get created, some of which are, very closely related to law. I think we're going to see a lot more compliance professionals in the next generation using technology heavily to monitor what's going on deep inside a corporation. I think we're going to see legal engineers, people that understand law and that understand technology helping to develop some of these products. I think we're going to see paraprofessionals. We're going to see people that, maybe haven't been to law school but have had 6 months training and use a pretty reliable software program to help solve some of the simpler, legal problems at a much lower cost. So I think there'll be new fields created, but the important thing for young people is to think, given these changes, how do I craft a career that I find personally satisfying and sufficiently well paid to make it worth the bother?
And last question, how about the lawyers that are actually doing their jobs as they did it or as their grandfathers or fathers did it? What would be a good message for them to prepare for this new scenario?
Well, I think if you're in practice and you have clients, and you need to focus again on where you add value, and where typically if you're an older, experienced lawyer, by that time you've developed some experience, you have some judgment, what typically works and what doesn't. So you want to appreciate that you have that, hard-gained experience. But I think you're going to, unless you're planning on retiring pretty soon, I think you're going to have to come to grips with, you're going to need to learn to use some of these new technologies to make yourself more efficient. And I think, some people go, well, no, but these are the same people that are happily using smartphones, that are, using technology in all other areas of their life. So this is just one more area where they're going to have to accept the changes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Professor Campbell.